Wall Street veteran Bernard Madoff has been arrested and charged with running a $50 billion Ponzi scheme.
Congress wants to know what caused the Enron meltdown.
Now, while the collective rage currently is focused on WorldCom,
Tyco CEO Dennis Kozlowski was convicted of looting hundreds of millions of dollars.
This is one of the biggest fraud cases ever.
Their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Find out more on this week's episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
As a sports fan myself, I can be the first to tell you that some people get really crazy about supporting their team. The parasocial relationship that extends one way from fans to sports teams is extremely interesting and can be very toxic. Look at Philadelphia when they win anything, or lose anything for that matter. But there is still, nothing wrong with enjoying a sport for the entertainment value or because you admire how hard it is to do well. But if you're fighting someone who likes a rival team with your fists or your words, you've gone too far. This all to say that people really care about sports. And because of that, there has grown a huge secondary market for the buying and selling of sports memorabilia. And people can be equally crazy around wanting a signed jersey, ball, or card that sports, I see what I did there, the name of their favorite players. And when there is fanaticism, there will be those willing to prey upon them, which is exactly what Bill Mastro did. Through his sports memorabilia and Americana auction business, Bill separated potential buyers with millions of dollars that they did not have to give up because under the table, he was rigging the game. Today, we dive into a tale of deception, greed, and cut corners, literally, on this week's episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
Yeah, we all know how I feel about sports.
Yeah, you love them.
I love them more than anything in the whole world. They make my heart soar.
Nina's got the best water cooler talk about sports for sure.
Oh, yeah. Did you watch the game last weekend?
Absolutely.
The Cubs won.
Last weekend, yes. Recently, no.
Cubs.
They've instead gotten their faces beat in very mercilessly by our biggest rival. But I digress. This isn't a sports podcast. This is White Collars, Red Hands. I'm Kashawn.
And I'm Nina. And thank God this is not a sports podcast. You all would never listen to it.
Yeah, here's the thing. I am very proud to say that a majority of our listenership is not male, especially for a podcast that is about financial crime, because I feel like that's where all the bros are, and we have curated an audience that is not that, which is exactly what I would want from this.
Yes.
But yes, if our listenership was primarily male, there'd be a lot more insults in the comments about Nina, more than there already are. But nevertheless, no
one has ever said I was ugly on the podcast.
Yeah, I don't think that's happened.
Just on my own personal social media.
Yeah, keep that there. This is about crime.
Yeah.
And speaking of crime, today we're talking about Bill Mastro, the owner of Mastro Auctions, and all this went down kind of turn of the millennium, early 2000s, late 1990s, and it actually is more far-reaching than I thought when I started doing this episode. I thought this episode was like a cute little story that was going to be quick and just kind of fun. But it does have an impact that we can still feel today. And I kind of found that interesting. So we might as well just get into who is Bill Mastro. Well,
who is he? Tell me.
Well, William Mastro was born, Bill Mastro, was born December 6th, 1952 in New Jersey, and grew up in Bernardsville, where his father owned a shoe store and also taught political science classes at the local university. University? I need to go to university.
You do.
So you can say he knew a little bit about soul and a little bit about rigmarole. Am I right?
Okay.
Oh, this is not starting off. Well, if that, you know, when I wrote that line, I was like, yeah. Yeah, this is gonna crush. No, I knew it was bad, and I left it in there because of it. So
we love a bad pun over here.
it's not even a pun. I don't even know. It just rhymes. I don't know what I was doing. Anyway, Bill was a small child in stature, and according to his brother, he was mercilessly bullied. We've been getting a lot of these recently, which led him to collecting baseball cards.
That'll fix it.
As a hobby, because, I don't know, it was an escape for him, is what he said. Of course, this information comes from his letter before his sentencing, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're playing a lot of this up mostly for sympathy.
For sure.
I mean,
For sure.
I didn't start collecting Magic the Gathering cards because I was bullied growing up, all right? I got bullied because I was collecting Magic the Gathering cards. Causation can be a two-way street.
Because, Sean, you were getting bullied way before you started collecting those Magic the Gathering cards.
I hate how accurate that statement is.
As one chubby kid to another, we got made fun of before that.
After he obviously had a tough childhood, according to his brother, he attended Moravian College in Pennsylvania. And after graduating in 1975, he moved to Chicago to attend a respiratory therapist school at the University of Chicago.
That's a hard school to get into.
It is a pretty good medical school at that. He graduated from there and started working at Rush Hospital, where he met his future wife, Mary Lou. No relation to that little kid who gave the Grinch cardiomegaly, by the way. Cardiomegaly being the medical term for an enlarged heart.
Oh.
Like I said, I was really popping off when I wrote don't worry, I lose steam. It gets way less fun.
Okay. I was like, I don't know what that is.
After a few years of working at Rush Hospital, he decided to leave his job as a respiratory therapist to buy and sell sports memorabilia full-time, a hobby that had not left him since his childhood. And honestly, credit where credit is due. He is credited with bringing the hobby of sports memorabilia collection to the forefront. It was not as popular as it is now when he started doing this. In 1990, he convinced Sotheby's, an auction house that primarily deals in high-end art and jewelry, to hold their first ever sports memorabilia auction, where Bill acted as the coordinator and consultant for that auction. This went well for the auction house financially, and the market started to realize that the kids who used to collect baseball cards growing up turned into adults who were down to spend some expendable cash buying cardboard on their downtime.
Hey, I mean, we're seeing this now. I mean, what year is this?
This is in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean,
early 90s.
To be fair, us as millennials now, we are spending tons of money on stuff that we loved as kids. So Gen Xers did it too. So did boomers. Yeah, you always just kind of stick with what you love. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, at this time, you're also getting the rise of, it's been a few decades since the Super Bowl's been played. Baseball's been around for a while. This is like getting into the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan era.
Yep.
A lot of, sports are always been popular, but are picking up even more steam. Bill also realized that auctions could make the sports collector fabulously rich, and decided to just do it himself instead of getting these other auction houses to do it. And in 1996, he founded Mastro Auctions to buy, sell, and auction off primarily sports memorabilia, but would later expand into auctioning off basically any collectible item. At first, the auction house advertised primarily in catalogs, obviously in the 90s, but it was the late 1990s, and the sound of AOL dial-up tones could be heard throughout the streets of America, which is why Mastro Auctions would hold its first ever online auction in 1998. Over the next decade, Mastro Auctions would go on to sell $250 million worth of items.
In the 90s.
Between the late 90s, so like 1998 when they first had the first online auction, until they went defunct in 2009.
Okay.
They sold about $250 million worth of items through Mastro auctions, including one more than others, which gave them a stellar reputation and which requires a bit of backstory. So we're going to digress a little bit into something that is completely different, but hopefully you find it as interesting as I do. And it's the history of baseball trading cards.
All right, let's buckle up.
So over 100 years ago, there lived a goofy-looking dude, big nose, who really knew how to play baseball by the name of Johannes Peter Wagner, or better known as Hannes Wagner, nicknamed the Flying Dutchman because he was fast and German, played far before Jackie Robinson broke the baseball color barrier, but is still regarded as one of the best shortstops to ever play the game. Also widely regarded as the hardest position to play in baseball. He was active between 1897 and 1917, and although he played his first days with the no longer with us Louisville Colonels, he did most of his stick swinging with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was a very good player and one of the first of the 5 inaugural members inducted into the first ever Hall of Fame class in 1939. For those of you who care, the others were Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Christy Mathewson, and Walter Johnson. For those who really want to know some history here.
The Pittsburgh Pirates are still there today, right?
Yes, they are. They are still a team today. By the time Hannes played in the league, baseball cards had already been gaining popularity. Starting as early as the 1860s, with baseball and photography on the rise at the same time in America, trade cards, which is what they were called, depicting first teams and then players, began being circulated to promote various businesses, even those that didn't necessarily have anything to do with baseball, like furniture stores would publish trading cards with baseball teams and their logo to be like, you like this team, you'll love our dressers.
Love our furniture.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's what they did. And by 1886, the companies that far and away spread the most baseball trading cards were those in big tobacco. And images of baseball players on cards were included with packs of cigarettes to encourage people to buy them. Little collectibles, like a Cracker Jack toy, but in something that gives you cancer. Maybe Cracker Jack also gives you cancer. I don't know.
Everything gives you cancer.
Yeah, true. At least to some level, right? One of these companies was the American Tobacco Company, and they put out one of the most popular sets of baseball cards ever, known as the T206 set, issued from 1909 to 1911. The set has become sought after because it was large based on quantity of cards, containing over 500 players. It's also rare and has garnered praise for the high-quality lithograph art on the cards. Hannes Wagner was one of the players in this set, and because he was so good, his card would likely be one of the most expensive ones in an already expensive set. But his T206 card is the second most expensive baseball card of all time. Damaged copies have sold for more than $100,000 per card.
What?
Yeah, like fully damaged copies, like not in great condition, $100,000.
That's crazy.
This is because the set was already sought after. He was one of the best players of the time, and there were only about 50 copies of his card ever in circulation.
Oh, wow.
Well, it turns out Hannes Wagner was not happy about his likeness being used on the card and called up the American Tobacco Company to discontinue the use of his likeness. There are 2 possible explanations for how this happened that have kind of been handed down throughout history. We're not really sure which one is true. The first being the happy kind of fairy tale version where Hannes was against baseball cards and cigarette packs because it encouraged children to smoke, which, I mean, that's possible given that Britain had already made it illegal to sell tobacco to children in 1908, something that would not happen in America for quite some time, by the way.
Interesting.
And being of European descent, Wagner may have been more likely to find the sight of children smoking more unseemly than an American person who was used to, seeing all the kids smoking as long as they still had their fingers from working in the factories. I'm joking. If they didn't have their fingers, they'd have their friends hold the cigarette.
Exactly.
The second, less fun option is that Hannes Wagner thought he should be paid more money than some of the other players in the set, which actually contained over 100 minor league players. And instead of increasing his dues, the company just decided to stop circulating his card.
Hard to say. Maybe it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, he could have been like, you're going to have to pay me good money if you're going to encourage children to smoke. It's like, I have dignity, but it can be bought. And here's the number.
Absolutely. My morals can definitely be bought.
This is also at a time where baseball players did not make a lot of money. So he probably was poor.
What's crazy? Now they're like the highest paid.
All of this to say that the T206 Hannes Wagner card was once again the second most expensive baseball card of all time, with one being sold for $7.25 million, which is second only to the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card, which sold for $12.6 million.
So you know what's so crazy about all of this? Before today, I didn't know who either of those people were.
Oh, come on. Not even Mickey Mantle. Hannes Wagner, I understand, but Mickey Mantle?
Mickey Mantle does sound somewhat familiar.
He's kind of like he's just a pop culture icon from the 1950s, so you might know him. You definitely know people like Babe Ruth, obviously, and Lou Gehrig. Yeah. Lou Gehrig, you probably know.
He had a disease.
He did. He did have a disease named after him. And he had that disease.
Poor guy.
By the way, the number one most expensive sports trading card is actually a basketball card. So these are positions 2 and 3, technically. I don't remember the price of one. I didn't write it down. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure it was like a Kobe Bryant rookie card or something. I don't know.
Was that recently, like after he died, that sold so much?
All right. So the current record price is for a basketball card. It's $12.9 million that was paid for a 2007 autographed card featuring Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And yes, it was bought in 2025, so after Kobe Bryant had already passed.
Do you know how many homeless people that could have fed? That $12 million?
You know how many homeless people the card could feed? Probably like an eighth of one. It'd hold him over for like 10 minutes if he ate the card. Right? So, there you go. Anyway, so the Hannes Wagner card is expensive. That's the main takeaway, which is what makes it even crazier that Bill Mastro found one in a collection he bought for just $25,000 in the late 1980s. Bill Mastro turned around and sold this one card for $100,000.
Wow.
To a man known as Jim Copeland. This was one of the largest sports memorabilia purchases at the time and was also integral into invigorating the hobby. It brought credence to it, credibility to it, and said, look, these things, people are willing to buy these for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it got a lot of people into it. In 1991, Copeland then went back to Bill and the early form of Mastro auctions to put the card up for sale. Mastro did so and flipped the card again, this time for $451,000. So he 4x'd the price both times he sold it.
Wow, that's insane.
And this was at an anonymous auction, with the winners later turning out to be ice hockey legend Wayne Gretzky and the owner of the LA Kings at the time, Bruce McNall. They bought it and they later put it up. It was like at a charity auction. It was like one of the main things that you could win. So the sale of this card is part of what legitimized and brought Mastro auctions to the forefront of sports memorabilia auction houses as well. They were, for quite a while, the auction house that facilitated the sale of the most expensive baseball card. They gained a reputation for having the best merchandise, but also for getting the highest selling price for their items, making them attractive not only for the collector, but also for the seller. And you best know that Mastro Auctions makes money from both. They charge the seller a fee to list the item and sell the item, and they also charge the buyer a fee called the buyer's premium, which was like 20% additional on top of the price of the item, and incentivize Mastro Auctions to sell each item they had for as much as they could. And they did so a little too often. By the way, 20% is a normal amount for auctions. If you go to an auction to buy something, a 20% buyer's premium is like normal.
That's crazy.
So if anyone out there was like going to an auction soon for some reason, keep that in mind.
Yeah, I won't be going to an auction anytime soon.
As it turns out, Mastro Auctions not only pioneered the market and auction business for sports memorabilia, but also set new standards for how to swindle purchasers out of their hard-earned cash. In an auction, I think we can all agree, right? The item goes to the highest bidder. We can agree that's how auctions work, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, it was the first rule listed on Mastro Auctions guidelines that they keep for auctions hosted on their site, that the item goes to the highest bidder. But what if they just didn't do that, right? What if instead Mastro Auctions colluded with sellers to inflate the price of the items they sold until they reached a price that the seller was willing to let it go for? This is exactly what Mastro Auctions did. Either Mastro himself, someone working for Mastro Auctions, or someone affiliated with the seller would place bids on items to falsely inflate the price until they reached whatever price they were willing to let it go for. And this process is known as shill bidding. People have done this at in-person auctions too. But the potential downside there is that the shill bidder could potentially win the auction, right? And be on the hook to buy back their own item, maybe for more than they bought it for originally, and with a buyer's premium of 20% added on top. They just lose money. Mastro Auctions, however, was complicit with these people and oftentimes would just completely cancel the sale if a shill bid won the auction. And if the shill bidder was related to the seller, they would oftentimes completely waive the fees associated with the sale as well. So they just cancel the sale. They don't pay any of the buyer's premium. They don't even pay their seller's fee up front. They just say, well, we'll put it back on in a little bit. Mm-hmm. In order to place these bids, Bill Mastro created multiple fake accounts and would use the names of people that he knew, like his family members, and even he had a account named after his priest.
Oh, nice.
Which is an interesting choice.
Yeah.
He also, more stupidly, used his own personal account, the Mastro Auctions corporate account, and accounts of employees to place shill bids. By the way, at this point, there was an open record of who was bidding on the items. So you could just see the usernames of people bidding on the items. So, kind of stupid.
Yeah, very stupid.
There are theories, like one of the investigators from the FBI was like, we're pretty sure that he didn't know that this was illegal. they're like, he was like, we're pretty sure Bill Mastro was like, oh, it's immoral, but
I don't think it's illegal.
Show me the law that says I can't. He thought it was like Air Bud rules.
Oh my God. And they're like literally right here, you dumbass.
Yeah, and
you can't do this.
Bill Mastro never said that, but that's what one of the FBI investigators said. So I don't know. But this basically meant that Mastro Auctions operated as a reserve auction house where they set a reserve price that an item must meet for a sale to go through, which is another way that auctions can proceed. But in all of their advertisements, they advertised as being a no reserve auction house very publicly and very prominently. It was part of their sell. And all of this was then released. If something sold, it was released in an auction report claiming that the item had actually been sold, even if the sale had been canceled, which falsely inflated the sales of Mastro Auctions, but also the price of an item. They'd inflate it to, past whatever they were asking for, say it was sold at that price, and then later relist it. And now they could get even more money for it because everything that's sold, they look back at the history of what it's been sold for previously to determine its value now. Like, values pretty much always go up. Someone's going to have to pay more this time than last time, even though last time it didn't actually sell. No one wanted it for that price. To go one step further, Mastro Auctions provided a service where you could let them know a ceiling price that you were willing to pay for an item, and then an automated system would place bids in defined increments until it got to that price. So you could say, oh, I'm willing to pay $400 for this. So if someone else is bidding on it, bid in $50 increments until you get to $400. If it goes over there, stop bidding. So then Mastro and his co-conspirator, president and COO, Doug Allen, knew a bidder had a ceiling price on. They would submit shill bids until they reached that ceiling price, because they knew that that's the amount that the buyer was willing to pay for it. So they were the ones pushing it all the way up there so that it could sell at its highest price possible. One buyer actually recognized this shill bidding happening because he had sold his collection to another person. That other person turned around and listed all of those cards on Mastro Auctions. And at that point, the original seller was like, actually, you know what? I think I want to buy one of those cards back. Like, I sold it, but I actually want it back. So he went on there and he noticed that all of the cards that he had sold him were selling for the exact price that he sold to the other buyer. Like multiple times, down to the cent. Yeah. They were going for the exact price that he sold to him, which is completely improbable, obviously.
Right.
And it was almost like someone is making bets to make sure the seller could do no worse than break even, which is exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
All in all, it is believed that Bill Mastro stole as much as $1 million through this shill bidding scheme. But as it turns out, that wasn't the only thing going on at Mastro Auctions. It is probably the biggest, but it's not the only thing. So authenticity is an important part of sports memorabilia as well, right? Mm-hmm. Like famous artworks, designer bags, or Labubus, there will always be fakes floating around, and the same thing is true in the world of signed jerseys and game-used footballs. As it turns out, though, Bill Mastro cared a lot less about running a reputable business than he did about making money. Mm-hmm. In 2002, Mastro Auctions sold an 1869 Cincinnati Red Stockings trophy ball that was supposedly a game-used ball by the first ever professional baseball team that had been painted gold as a trophy for the winning team to display in their clubhouse. After the buyer had the ball in their collection for a few years, they decided, you know what, I want some more documentation on this, and they sent it to a lab for testing. The lab results came back and showed that the paint on the ball contained compounds that were not present in paint until after World War II. So old, but not, 1969 old.
Mm-hmm.
So in November of 2006, the buyer got a refund from Mastro Auctions after presenting them with these lab results. But only about a month later, Mastro called up someone he knew on the side and asked him if he wanted to buy this trophy ball that he knew was fake And he completed the sale to this guy for $62,000.
Even though he knew it was fake.
Yeah, he knew it was fake. And obviously, he never told him about the lab results or gave any indication that he knew it was fake.
Well, right. Why would he?
Yeah. So he got the lab results. He knows definitively, oh, well, this is not real. I'll just call up this guy and see if he wants it.
Yeah, he'll buy it.
As I mentioned before, Mastro Auctions did not just sell sports memorabilia, though. They sold any kind of collectible. And that leads me to the weirdest fake item they sold, which was a jar of Elvis Presley's hair.
I didn't think you were going to say hair.
Just a glass jar of, like, cut Elvis Presley's hair.
Why?
People wanted it. In April of 2003, Mastro Auctions sold, once again, like a literal glass jar of hair that was supposedly cut from the head of the king of rock and roll himself. Why anyone would want that, especially for tens of thousands of dollars.
But you know what? Elvis fans are crazy.
Obviously, this was definitely like going to be used in a shrine, right?
Like, I've never met an Elvis fan who is like passive about being an Elvis fan. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah. Like, I've never met an Elvis fan who's like, yeah, I enjoy his music. No, it's like, oh, I love Elvis.
He is the best musician of all time. Yeah,
no, it's like they're really hyped about him.
And some people obviously take that a step further. They had to be smelling it or something. It's very weird. I don't understand it.
Or trying to him. I don't know.
But the person who did buy it at least had enough sense to send it to a lab for DNA testing. The results of that test showed this jar of hair was not only not Elvis Presley's, but wasn't even from a singular person. Instead, it was an amalgamation of 4 different people's hair in this jar.
They just went to the barber shop and plucked out all the hair out of the bin and then just put it in there. They're like, where's all the black hair? And they found all the black hair, put it in a jar, and said it was Elvis.
That's kind of exactly what they did.
Yeah.
The buyer came back to Mastro Auctions and agreed to sign an NDA in return for a full refund for their jar of hair they bought. Mastro then took that random hair, split it into 4 smaller jars of hair, one for each person whose hair was in it, by the way, and resold it again, labeling it as Elvis's hair.
Oh my God.
Even though he knew for a fact that that was false. These 4 jars sold for a combined $40,000, by the way. They all sold. And $40,000 worth of...
And none of it was Elvis's.
Nope. Nope, it's all fake.
Like that, he knows is illegal.
You'd think so.
You know so. You know that that's wrong.
The biggest of all misrepresentations, however, goes back to that Hannes Wagner T206 card. It had come into question because the edges of the card looked a little too perfect. Turns out that when Bill Mastro originally found the card, it's like a really skinny, like cardboard card, like skinnier than what you'd imagine for most trading cards, a little bit taller. And when he got it, the edges were slightly bowed out, kind of like a football shape instead of like a rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
So before he sent it to get graded as like mint, near mint, whatever, he trimmed the sides with a paper cutter. So this man doctored an item that would eventually go on to be sold for more than a Bugatti, by the way. The final time this card itself was sold, it sold for $2.5 million.
Oh my God.
And he cut the sides off with a common office item. And it wouldn't be known, obviously, until years later when Mastro was close to prison time.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of those 2 big things, the shill bids and the authenticity questions about Mastro Auctions, were the 2 biggest problems with the business, but there were multiple others. I mean, there were, like, when they would evaluate cards, they would often like evaluate them at a lower value, and then they would sell them to themselves for an artificially low value, and then switch the grading on them and then sell them for more to actual people, so they didn't have to like pay the seller more. There was a bunch of stuff going on.
It was like sketchy.
Yes, but the biggest things are the shill bids and the selling of fake merchandise, knowingly fake merchandise.
Yeah, this is not authentic.
Because no matter what, like if you like, fakes are going to go through these things, right? And
right.
You put in stop gaps to make sure you're not selling them, but it happens. Things slip through the cracks. But he knowingly, like, he saw lab results and was like, who cares? I'll just sell it to somebody else. So, leading up to 2007, a frequent buyer on Mastro auctions had noticed something weird happening on the site. He would see an item that would not be bid on for multiple days, staying at the same price. And less than a minute after he would bid on them, he would be outbid. So no one's bidding. He puts a bid in and he's immediately outbid within like a minute.
Outbid.
So this happened with such frequency that he contacted law enforcement because he figured something fishy was up. This, along with multiple other complaints against the auction house, finally got the attention of both the FBI and the IRS, and they launched an official investigation into the company in 2007. In response to this, Bill Mastro ordered all of the bidding records for the history of the company to be deleted.
I knew you were going to say to be destroyed. I was like, he destroyed them all. I know for a fact he destroyed them all.
Which meant tracking shill bidding accounts was going to be next to impossible.
Yeah.
All the while, Mastro Auctions did not slow down on the scheme, at least until 2008, where, whether due to growing distrust of online auction sites not named eBay, obviously, that one stuck around for until now, or due to the economic crisis going on, Mastro Auctions started to struggle financially and ended up declaring bankruptcy in 2009. With the investigation still hanging over them, though, Bill Mastro decided to flip state's evidence and plead guilty to one count of mail fraud, and in return provided much of the information in today's episode through the indictment that was released that he was fully complicit in. With his testimony, the FBI was able to convict Greg Allen, the COO and president of the company, another executive, Mark Theotokos, and their IT director, Bill Bohm, who obviously had to correct a bunch of the records from the online auction. Greg Allen was sentenced to 57 months in prison. Theotokos was sentenced to 1 year, and Will Bohm was sentenced to 2 years probation.
Probation. Okay.
For his compliance, Bill Mastro was sentenced to 20 months in prison and required to pay the maximum fine for one count of mail fraud of $250,000. This is obviously far less than the illicit gains that the scheme brought to him in the first place. I mean, his company did go bankrupt, but still. So Bill Mastro took a childhood hobby to its heights, popularizing it while making money hand over fist. But somewhere along the way, he lost sight of the passion that got him out of respiratory therapy in the first place. Instead of inspiring future collectors, he wringed it for every dollar he could and did business in a dishonest and greedy way. Ripples from his actions still exist, with sports memorabilia being more expensive than ever. It is thought that his practices, which spread to all of the other online sports memorabilia auction houses, falsely inflated the entire market of sports memorabilia.
I don't think that's crazy. I think that that's completely believable.
I heard numbers of up to like more than 20%. Like all sports memorabilia is like 20 to 25% more expensive now because of these practices that were done at the beginning.
Does not shock me.
But I mean, that's what capitalism is all about, right? Something's worth is based on the exact maximum that somebody will pay for it. But did Bill Mastro pay? He spent some time in prison, sure, and paid back some of the money, but I'm sure that he doesn't miss any meals even to this day. But hey, without him, how would we ever get the sentence, they paid $40,000 for a jar of hair? So at least he left us with that.
He left us something.
And that is what I'm leaving y'all with from today's episode of White Collars, Red Hands. That was the story of Bill Mastro and Mastro Auctions, and how, I mean, I don't own any sports memorabilia. At least not like anything signed. I have a couple jerseys, and trust me, I paid more than those are worth too.
Yep.
But he definitely left his impact upon this hobby, and he kind of ruined it for a lot of people. So if you liked what you heard today, then why don't you show us a little bit of love back by writing a review? You can write a review with words on Spotify if you listen there. Or if you don't, you can just go leave a review if that's really your thing. Or you can leave a star review either on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts if that's where you're listening. Our data, our hackers showed us the data, and it looks like most of you are listening on Apple Podcasts. So you might as well leave a 5-star review while you're there. If you're not on those, if you're a hipster, that's also cool. Love that. Whatever you're listening on, I'm sure you can like, you can subscribe, you can favorite. So why don't you go ahead and do that for us? That'll help us out a lot. Maybe you're over on YouTube. Maybe you're watching our faces right now. The videos of this podcast are available on youtube.com at White Collars, Red Hands. It's also available on Spotify. Those are the two places to watch the video if you choose to do so, but it's available in audio. Obviously, if you're only listening to this right now, you know that. You can also support us by going and liking our socials. We're at facebook.com/whitecollarsredhands, Instagram at whitecollars_redhands. We're at X at whitecollarspod, TikTok, that's White Collars, Red Hands. We got a little short form sneak peeks every single week for our videos there. And am I missing a social media? I don't think so.
No, I think you got them all.
right, well, you can go to our website if you want. Guess what? It's whitecollarsredhands.com. And while you're there, I know, right? While you're there, there is a button that says check out our merch. And when you click that, guess what? It lets you check out our merch over at Dashery, and you can buy a hat, a shirt, a mouse pad. There's a lot of things. If you want something with our logo on it, you can do that, and we get a cut of the money, and that's awesome, and we love you for it. But the best way that you can really support the podcast is just by telling your friends. Podcast spread by word of mouth, kind of like mono. So kiss your friends, and while you're nibbling on their earlobe, why don't you whisper. Oh no, the noise gate is blocking your whispering.
White Collars, Red Hands. It's the best podcast I've ever listened to. Oh, it feels so good when it hits my eardrums.
Nothing would do it better for me, folks. So whisper that in the ears of your friends. If you want to contact us, you can go ahead and send us a DM. You can send us a DM on any of those social medias that I mentioned earlier, or you can email us at whitecollarsredhands@gmail.com. Also, our website has a contact us page. You can do any of those, and you can submit an episode. We try to do a fan-submitted episode every single season. So the next one could be yours. Okay.
Sharp.
All right.
Yeah, we did.
Weird voices are escaping me, so I think it's about time to end the episode. So thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you on another episode of White Collars, Red Hands. I don't even think you said anything that time. Whatever.